I think it's a case of when you have a resource-led economy as much as Russia is, if you're overly complacent or frame your entire economic structure, policies, social services, and just political decision making around it, it's obviously a huge problem. Saudi Arabia is a great illustration of this. The Crown Prince MBS is trying to radically and rapidly reorientate the economy because of the awareness that Saudi Arabia's production of oil, or what's known in the industry as peak oil usage, has surpassed. We're already seeing a decrease in peak oil from peak oil because more economies are shifting to renewables. The Europeans are putting a lot of emphasis on nuclear, for example, which I think Germany should have done ages ago. And so when it comes to Russia, certainly, this is a structural decline, which is not something that you can easily fix. And when you have government spending as high as it is, but as we say often, Constantine, it's not just government expenditure on infrastructure. It's not supply side economics. It's demand led. And it's demand led in military production, which has no shelf life at all. Because if you're producing shells or tanks or heavy industrial equipment used for the battlefield, which then gets destroyed, okay, sure, you've produced economic activity, but it's all being destroyed. You know, the lot of emphasis is put on Russia's drone production, but those drones they're unsalvageable because it's not like they're high-end drones that the US or even maybe Turkey produces. These are Shahed equivalent kinds of drones. There was a statistic, I think, from 2 weeks ago. The Iranians have sold up to $3 billion worth of drones to the Russian state. But that's not money that they get. That's not, there's no continuation of that. It's a one-time sunk cost, right? If you do economics, you know what a sunk cost is. So we don't see any longevity to this. And ultimately, the economy has been sustained because the Russian public consumes a lot. But if you're spending a lot in the government, if you're a consumer a lot, that leads to inflationary pressure, which is what we've seen now with, I think it's been reduced to what, 5.6% compared to around 9.5% last year. And that's the priority. If the government can't keep inflation under control, then it runs away. The entire economy becomes, well, look at Venezuela with the hyperinflation of the past few years. And the last point I'd say is also that there's no investment in it, there's no aspect of investment here. So again, the long-standing growth that you could see doesn't exist, and ultimately it leads to government debt going up. Look at the ratio of debt to GDP. It's shot up in the past year, 18 months for Russia, hasn't it? And Russia's never been seen as like a Western economy like Greece or Italy, well, Japan, where their debt to GDP is what, 200%. Russia's has been going up huge in the past few months. So I don't know, what do you think the central bank in Russia can do at this point?
Not much. What you said about the products of Russia's military-industrial complex do not add value to economy. It's called, there's no economic multiplier. And you're
There you
absolutely
go.
right. And
Multiplier effect. Thank
that's
you.
just, you take money and you spend it, you burn it. Okay, and it doesn't leave any trace in the economy, except for you had money and you don't have it. Okay, because you manufacture a rocket and it just flies to Ukraine, blows up and kills people. You know, what good does it do to anyone? So Russian central bank has run out of options. What you say in borrowing, I call printing money, because Russia, it's really the process of printing money masked by borrowing. Russian central bank cannot just buy government bonds. That Ministry of Finance issues. So it has come up with a sophisticated procedure called repo auctions. Basically, it gives Russian commercial banks, a few large state-owned or state-controlled banks, let's say $1 trillion loan, short-term loan for a week or for a month. Used to be for a month. Now I think it's a weekly loan. So 7-day loan. And the purpose of this loan is to buy Ministry of Finance bonds, Russian government bonds, okay? Because no one else buys them. Russia cannot sell bonds outside Russia, that everything is sanctioned. And Russian people, obviously, they don't have money. And banks, it's not time to invest into Russian government bonds. So these commercial banks buy bonds in large quantities, say 4 trillion rubles. And when it's time to repay the loan, they use bonds as collateral, and they give bonds to the central bank. You see, that's the scheme. That's how they print money. They're just flooding economy with money. That results in very high inflation. I mean, we're both economists. We understand that, because if you flood economy with money, you get inflation. There's no way around it. Okay, they've been trying to keep the inflation down by keeping the exchange value of Russian ruble to American dollar and foreign currencies artificially low. So Russian ruble is artificially strong right now, and that is one of the tools that helps to contain, slow down inflation. But you can't really slow it down with printing money like that. So imagine this: 2026, 5.6% plan for the entire year. That's the inflation, right? You mentioned this. Now, just in first 2 weeks, 1.62%, just 2 weeks, around 1/3 of what is planned for 2026 for the entire year. Just first 2 weeks of January. New tax system, VAT increase, printing money, and, general perfect storm. It causes inflation to start galloping. That's what we're seeing right now. And there's not much the central bank can do. They kept Russian ruble value as the weapon of last resort to fill the gap, the budget deficit. But they can't devalue Russian ruble much, because that's going to fuel higher inflation, already high, even higher. So there's not much Russia's central bank can do. The only thing they can do is a classical tool, is to raise the interest rate, the key interest rate. But the head of central bank is under so much pressure right now by the military-industrial complex and her enemies in other branches of the government, that it's a real struggle right now. So there's not much they can do.
This is The Global Gambit.